Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. So, welcome to today's full council meeting, the last one of 2025. Welcome in particular to members of the public who are attending in the public gallery, those in the conference hall next door, and also those watching this meeting via our YouTube channel. For those in the building, I would like to draw your attention to the emergency evacuation procedure. Please leave the chamber by the nearest exit and congregate by the cathedral if instructed to do so. And please switch mobile devices to silent mode to avoid disturbing the meeting. As with any council meeting, please treat each other with due courtesy, tolerance and respect. It is almost Christmas after all. So, agenda item 2, apologies for absence. I have received apologies from the Lord Mayor, Councillors Blenkinsop, Clark, Dyer, Gooch, Hants, Logan, Morris and O'Rourke. Are there any other apologies? Okay, agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. Please can I ask whether any councillors have any interest to declare regarding the items on today's agenda? Councillor Plowden.
My Deputy Lord Mayor, my wife runs a business and has at times worked with the Adoption West to work with families and children who have gone through the adoption process.
Thank you very much, Councillor Plowden. That will be noted. And I also have a declaration of interest to make as well. So agenda item 8 on today's agenda, the petition debate, Save Bristol Blue Glass. This petition was organised and submitted by me, but as I'm chairing the meeting, I can't present it. So my ward colleague, Councillor Clark, will be presenting that petition on my behalf. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Jemfrey.
Yes, Lord Mayor, I'm not sure if it's relevant, but my other job is as a social worker with foster carers in Bath and North East Somerset, so that may be relevant to the Silver motion.
Thank you. We'll note that as well. Thank you much, Councillor Jemfrey. Okay. Let's move on to agenda item 4, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the previous meetings of full council held on the 4th of November 2025 and also the 13th of November be agreed as a correct record. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I rise to second the minutes.
Can I take it that the minutes are agreed? That's a resounding aye. Let's move on to agenda item 5, Lord Mayor's business. Firstly, I'd like to remind members that nominations for the Lord Mayor's medals will be opening soon. These medals recognise outstanding and innovative unpaid service and support provided to others, especially selfless service to our voluntary body or to our communities, or which brings distinction and quality to Bristol Life. And I would ask all members to please promote the medals in their local networks when this is published. Thank you very much. Secondly, Council also notes the sad news that Martin Parr has recently passed away. Martin was an acclaimed documentary photographer and was a resident of Bristol for over 35 years. He established a foundation, which is in my ward of Brisbane West, to support emerging photographers and was awarded a CBE in 2021. And I also had the honour of meeting Martin at his Bristol Pride photographic exhibition at the Bristol Museum and Art Gallery earlier this year, and he was a lovely man and he will be much missed. Thank you. Agenda item 6 is public forum. 30 minutes will be allowed for this item, which is split into 15 minutes for petitions and statements and 15 minutes for questions. Details of the petitions, statements and questions received have been published on our website. I'll go through the list, calling on those that have indicated they plan to attend the meeting. Speakers are asked to pay attention to the traffic light system on the dais and to start to wrap up when the lights turn to amber. Now, there were no public forum petitions received for this meeting. There were, however, 35 public statements received, and 60 members of the public have indicated that they plan to attend and speak to their statements. And they will be displayed on the screen, and we'll run through those statements in order. Now, I'll invite each person to speak for 1 minute. Please summarise your statement and bear in mind they were published for councillors and members of the public to read in advance of today's meeting. Please note that the content of public statements are the opinion of the submitter and do not reflect the views of the council. I would like to take a moment to remind everyone of the need to be respectful and courteous throughout the meeting today. It's important that the public and members are able to engage in our democratic meetings and share their views about a range of issues. However, we must endeavour to do this in a way that does not cause offence to others. Please do consider this when making contributions at the meeting today. So firstly, we've got public statement number 2 from Clarissa Payne. Is Clarissa here? Clarissa, you've got 1 minute, please.
Clarissa, sorry.
Men are not women. Humans cannot change sex. To describe somebody accurately as a woman or a man is not to make a moral judgment. I'm not saying these things to offend, but because they are facts. They are facts that are often important in the work done by people in this chamber. If you want to protest, you're free to do it outside on College Green with everybody else. Councillors stood for election, learned about the councillor's role, signed a code of conduct and accept public money. When women and men state that sex is real, why does it render you unable to carry out this role? You're public servants, not protesters. You're public servants, not online trolls. You're public servants, not aristocrats with an arcane etiquette code that the public get wrong at their peril. The public come here to express factual and lawful views. Councillor Dyer says councillors can leave the chamber if they feel offended. A democratic public institution cannot possibly function on these lines.
Thank you. You've had your minutes. Thank you very much for your opinion. Let's move on to public statement number 7, Josh Rose. Is Josh here? I don't believe so. So let's move on to public statement number 9, Chris Boateng. Is Chris Boateng here? Thank you, Chris. You've got 1 minute on the induction into the British way of life, integration of new migrants from Africa into local communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Lordship. Bristol has seen a rise in African migrant workers, especially in the health sector, many of whom arrive with little or no induction to British customs. This often leads to lack of belonging within local communities. Currently, there are little or no programs to support their induction. I'm therefore pleading to the council to provide me with the details of appropriate officer to work with on this program to ensure effective and successful outcome for newly arrived African migrants to make sure that they are embedded in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement. Public statement number 9, public statement number 13, Hugh Lucas. Is Hugh here? Yeah. Hugh, you've got 1 minute, please, on support for the extension of residence parking scheme areas, RPSs.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This can be very quick. It's a statement in support of the proposed extension of the residence parking scheme to St Andrews and Bishopston. The statement was put in on behalf of 50 residents, primarily living in the vicinity of St Andrews Park, and we just wanted to indicate our support for the council's move and to ask how we can continue to support that into fruition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Public statement 14 from Helen Ballard. Is Helen here? And the statement is on the Bristol City Council's misrepresentation and dismissal of concerns about the safety and dignity of women. You've got 1 minute, please.
Thank you. This is about the misrepresentation of women's concerns about their safety. In the UK, every week, there are more than 60,000 attacks by men on women. I submitted a question about protecting women and girls from predatory men. The question was about dangerous men, not about trans people, yet it was labelled offensive and refused. It seems that talking about women's safety is misrepresented by this council as an attack on trans people. Can the council agree that women have the right to be heard and that the protection of women needs to be discussed and should not be conflated with other issues? I'm asking the council to put the record straight and acknowledge that my question was not an attack on trans people. I'm calling for the Council to discuss the critical issue of protecting women and girls without reducing it to the zero-sum game of trans rights versus women and girls' safety.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Let's move on to Public Statement 16 from Alderman Steve Smith on upholding democratic discourse and representative conduct.
Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor. The first time I ever spoke in this chamber was in public forum, about 18 years ago, I think. And through my time here as a councillor, I've always valued the fact that it's the one bit on the agenda that's not about what members think. Whether you want to speak about women's rights, about bins or parks or potholes, members of the public are entitled to come here and make their case. And if members don't like what they hear, tough. When members disagree with the public in public forum, and it's not a debate between two equal sides, you chose to put yourself forward for public office. You were elected and you are paid to represent the people of Bristol and to serve those people, whether you agree with them or not. Some of the performances that we've seen in here over recent months have, quite frankly, been shameful. The bare minimum that the public have the right to expect when they come here is that they will be heard, thank you, that they will be heard with a bare minimum of respect and courtesy and good manners. And quite frankly, if anyone in here cannot or will not do that bare minimum of their job, they should step aside for somebody who can.
Thank you, Alderman Smith. Public Statement 17 from Amber Eastman on the Liverpool, the LTN, Forced Game of Musical Chairs. Is Amber here? Okay, Amber, you've got 1 minute, please.
Thank you. I know of people who work irregular hours and often come home late at night and are unable to park close to their homes. One lady I know often has to park on another road. By your choices and decisions, you are essentially placing women at risk. Another friend who does not have a blue badge but isn't able to walk far also suffers from not being able to find a parking space when coming back from her appointments. My statement is to hold the committee in their decisions to account for causing unnecessary difficulties and conflict in an area that does not suffer from congestion, does not suffer from any more pollution than any other area of Bristol, and is on the whole a very quiet and safe neighbourhood to walk, cycle and drive. I would like to reiterate the word quiet, as there's so little traffic here, your ambitions are laughable. People with cars are not the enemy. Cars are not the enemy, but your strategy and malignment of cars and drivers would indicate this to be so. And this is in relation also to taking up critical parking spaces in the South Bristol area with bike hangers.
Thank you very much, Amber. Public Statement 19, Katie Taylor. Is Katie here? Katie, you've got 1 minute on the recent budget consultation.
Thank you. I stand to read this statement as the leader of a trans-inclusive organisation working for women's equality in Bristol. Bristol Women's Voice does not believe that the rights of one group of marginalised people should or even has to shut down the rights of another. We believe in space for difficult conversation with time out when needed, and we reject abusive behaviours that so frequently mirror the type of hateful behaviour people claim to stand in opposition to. Feminists and trans rights activists have worked together for decades in mutually supportive ways to collectively fight for our voices to be heard, our needs to be recognised, our existence to be acknowledged and valued equally. And we call upon people to work in allyship to end the patriarchy and all the oppressions that follow from there. If we don't fight in solidarity, we will fail. It is in this spirit that I raise that Bristol Women's Voice is concerned and disappointed that across the 77 recent budget proposals, women weren't mentioned once in the equalities impact assessments, despite that the proposals aim to cut services where women are the main users, workers or unpaid contributors. According to data cited by Bristol City Council, women are already more likely than men to experience economic hardship. 20% of women are living in poverty, rising to 25%.
Katie, your time's up, I'm afraid, but thank you very much for making your statement. Thank you. So, Public Statement 20 from Melissa Topping. Is Melissa here? Thank you, Caroline. So let's move on to Public Statement 21, John Stansfield. Is John here? Yep. John, you've got 1 minute on returning to the much-visited plant-based treaty issue.
Numerous scientific studies and bodies from the UN down have indicated that mankind needs to shift towards a plant-based diet to retain a livable planet, because animal agriculture has caused an ecological emergency and is a major driver of the climate emergency, both of which are closely interlinked. As the first council in the country to have recognised both these crises in 2018, it is extraordinary that this council persists in refusing to join the growing number of authorities, businesses, scientists and individuals worldwide who have endorsed plant-based councils and the Plant-Based Treaty, which together provide a roadmap for authorities to roll out the necessary transition. We have to assume that their 2018 gesture was simply for show and that they never really understood the ecological and climate crises, an impression strengthened by a number of shortcomings in their climate action plan.
Thank you. Public statement, can you hear me? Yeah, public statement number 23, David Redgewell, on improvement need to public transport network. David, 1 minute, please.
Well, it must be Christmas. We got £51 million from the UK government for 3 years for buses. That's for North Somerset and the West of England Mirror Combined Authority. That doesn't stop me saying to the council that we still need a transport levy for the local bus network. I welcome all the work that Ed Plowton's done, he knows that, and Tim Rippington particularly, but maintaining that network will require local budget payments to the mayor from South Gloucestershire, Baines, North Somerset, which we need to join, and Bristol. So I'm urging in the budget round to make sure the transport levy is passported to Helen Goodwin, the Mayor of West of England, keep buses and public transport moving in the city region. Thank you.
I think that was the shortest I've ever heard you speak, David. Well done. You had 20 seconds more if you wanted it. Okay, public statement 25. Is Joshua White here? Joshua? No. So we move on to public statement 28. Tia Bale. Tia is here, yep. And Tia, this is standing against transphobia. 1 minute.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of Stand Against Racism and Inequality, a local charity which supports people impacted by hate. We felt compelled to produce this statement after hearing transphobic comments made at previous full council meetings. Some comments tried to deny the existence of trans people. We do not support this and feel this is a form of oppression. Council meetings are where democracy happens. They should be a safe space where people feel safe to do their jobs, where people feel safe to see democracy in action without being afraid of being targeted for who they are. We urge people to think about the impact that their words and actions are having. Following the Supreme Court ruling, there's been division and polarisation, and people have felt emboldened to debate the very existence of trans people. These debates are harmful and have led to people feeling unsafe to be who they are, and that is unacceptable. Every day at SARI, we support people who have been targeted by hate because of someone else's prejudice. Any form of hate, whether it's transphobic, racist, disableist, or any other hate directed towards someone for being who they are, should not be allowed in this chamber. We are all human, and we ask people to treat each other with compassion and respect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tia, and thank you also to you and your colleagues at SARI for the wonderful work that you're doing. Thank you very much. So, public statement 29 is from Salem Bennett. Is Salem here? No. Let's move on then to public statement 33 from Caroline Dunn. Caroline, I'm going to give you a bit of extra time, so 1 minute and 30 seconds, because it's Christmas, to talk about exclusion of disabled people from Bristol.
Is this already on? Yes. Right, with respect to disabled people being excluded out of Bristol, I've spoken to both the Vice Chair of the Disability Commission and a senior Wessel person at the weekend. The Vice Chair only now mentioned, as having been consulted, says she was never consulted at all about any of the traffic plans, and the Wessel senior person said that they've only recently been consulted with the EBLN and say their report was not at all favourable. This is despite implications from the Transport Committee that these people have been consulted throughout and that everything was all right. So much for the Transport Committee claimed consultation. But the result of this is that I was excluded from a violence against women and girls candlelit vigil on the 25th of November, the UN International Day of Violence Against Women and Girls. And this is a really, really crucial cause and issue, and very, very close to my heart, and caused me massive distress. It's because I cannot now access the venue, the centre, and I ask how many other people, old, disabled, or with poor mobility, couldn't go and therefore weren't there. Now, moving on, I'd like to give a very big shout out to my
Caroline,
wonderful
you can't
bin
really
men.
move on too much, I'm afraid. You've got 10 seconds.
I just want to say my wonderful bin men, because their service will be badly impacted next year due to 3 major roadwork projects, with the congestion are rolled out throughout the whole central area, and the middle of Bristol will become a no-go area to everybody, and our economy are destroyed. And everybody will be blocked and shut out, not just me.
Okay, Caroline, I've been
And
more than generous.
to finalise...
No, that's it, I'm afraid. We need to move on so we can hear from other members of the public as well. But thank you very much, Caroline, for your points there. So let's move on to public questions. So 32 questions were received from members of the public, and 18 of those have indicated they wish to attend. We'll try to get through as many as possible. It may not be possible for everyone to speak, but we ask for your patience as we run through the questions in order. So when I call on you, your question will be displayed on the screen. You're invited to ask a maximum of 2 supplementary questions based on the written response, and the leader or relevant chair will reply verbally to your supplementary questions. So firstly, public question number 1 is Satwant Pool here. Sorry if I've mispronounced your name. He's not here, so you won't have heard my terrible butchering of his name. So let's move on then to public question number 6, Mark Ashdown. Is Mark here? No, okay. So public question number 11, Hugh Lucas. Is Hugh here? There we are. So Hugh, you've got 1 supplementary to ask Councillor Plowden on the extension of RPS areas to Bishopston and St Andrews.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Residents in St Andrews will be grateful for the reply to my question. There'll be much relief. My simple supplementary question is, can you give us contact details for residents to provide feedback into the council on the resident parking scheme? Thank you.
For the time being, the best contact would be your ward members, and that we will make sure that if you have any questions through that they're answered. We're just gearing up to deliver quite a lot of residents' parking schemes, and I imagine there'll be some sort of dedicated email address when that happens. And I do appreciate the support, because we have found that many transport initiatives can be quite divisive. So I think we need to brace ourselves for people who are not so fully in favour of this. Thank you.
Oh, just to apologise to Joe Sargent, who I see on the back benches there. Unfortunately, Joe, we did run out of time for statements, so I apologise for that. If we have time at the end, I'll come back to you, but I don't think we will. But anyway, thank you very much for coming. So let's move on then to public question number 13, Amber Eastman, South Bristol Liberal Neighbourhoods. Is Amber here? Yes, she is, of course, yes. So Amber, you've got 2 supplementaries for Councillor Plowden.
Okay, thank you. Hi. So from my own analysis and from speaking to lots of people in the Southall area, the majority are against the low traffic neighbourhood for different reasons. I want to know what percentage against will lead to a halting of the low traffic neighbourhood. If the majority of us are against it, will it be stopped? And what is that percentage?
Thank you for your question. I'm not going to put a number on that, because I don't think that would be the right thing to do. We are working and we are listening, and officers and councillors are going through all the concerns raised. We have actually a very large response to that. We will definitely be making changes as a result. At the end of the day, the responsibility for this is with the Transport and Connectivity Committee. The reason we don't I wouldn't put a number on this is I'm going to give you my experiences when I was actually working in the Transport Department as an officer, and residents' parking was going through. At the time, if you listen to the public discourse, you'd have heard that there was a huge number of people against it, and people were driving tanks and so on down Park Street. Our own experience was it was roughly 50-50. Once it went in, Marvin Rees, the mayor, came in and promised a review, and we found that almost all the opposition to it had melted away once people saw the benefits, and that really the review was very much about making tweaks, moving double yellow lines a few yards here and there. So we have to be very careful to think about our responsibilities in putting something like this through. We know it affects a lot of people, but I think to put a number on responses to and against would be unwise, and I'm not going to do it.
Thank you. And I have a second. I don't feel the way the survey was done was equaled the right results from the people in our neighbourhood, because there was no sort of paper trail of who filled it in. Will there be another survey done that directly represents the people in BS3 with their postcodes, with their electrical register? Because I don't feel it represented all of us, sorry.
That's not something we're currently planning, but we are planning multiple extra additional rounds of engagement, not least as when we are listening, we hear the concerns and we're making changes. So there will be multiple engagement, and anything we do is subject to a statutory consultation where we have to do all that in a very transparent way. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We go on now to public question 17 from David Ridgewell. You've got two supplementaries for Councillor Plowden again on bus services.
Well, I think the question is, Ed, is what is the, and if you know, what is the plans to add to the transport levy? Because what's £51 million is welcome. I'm sure you're welcome, and I do. 14 million a year with North Somerset's 9 million over 3 years. We still need the levy in order to maintain the supporting network. So what is the issue there now with the 4 UAs?
I don't quite know what the issue is, Dave. If you look at our budget papers, we will be paying our levy. The problem is that it wasn't inflation linked, and as we know, supporting bus services has gone way above inflation, the cost of doing that. So we are faced with some difficult choices. The good news is we were planning for up to a 75% cut, as advised by the Department for Transport, to the bus grant, which would have led to some very difficult decisions about what bus services we would need to take out. What I can do now is that, thankfully, at last, the government has given us the bus grant settlement. We have to respond to that very, very quickly because we need to register those services 70 days out, which is at the end of January. But thankfully, we will have slightly less difficult decisions to make. We've already been doing a number of contingencies and a number of scenarios to work out what the best thing that would be supported by all the unitary authorities would be. And as you'll see, if you look at the Finance Subcommittee papers that have been published, and we'll be discussing this on Thursday, we have made provision to put extra money into the levy if that's required to make sure that we're doing our bit to support bus services. And I know the other unitary authorities are making those very, very difficult decisions as well.
So my second, I don't know if Ed's going to answer this, but my second supplementary question is about North Somerset Council joining WECA. I mean, we need the order to start to progress with the 4 UAs, including the City and County of Bristol, and a public consultation. Are we going to see the 3 leaders plus North Somerset agree to grow the West of England Mirror Combined Authority and the Transport Authority and get a precept in place next year? Are we going to actually see some progress? Because it's just going round in circles, and passenger groups and stakeholders across the 4 UAs want this to happen, including in the future Gloucestershire probably.
I think you've answered your own question, Dave. We want it to happen. WECA wants it to happen. North Somerset wants it to happen. We've got to go through a process, as you know, with the central government to make that happen. We are in discussion with them. It's really above my pay grade. It's actually more of a leader of the council kind of thing to answer this. But the fact of the matter is it makes absolute sense. We know that that something like 90% of all the travel within what used to be the county of Avon is self-contained, so people don't leak out. So yes, we want it to happen. It's not helpful that the previous Labour mayor treated WECA so badly that it was put in special measures, so there's a time period before we can do these sorts of things, but we'll be ready to move very quickly when that time period is elapsed. Thanks, David.
Public question 18 from John Stansfield on the plant-based treaty. John, you've got one question for Councillor Fodor, please. on supplementary.
Hi there. Yeah, the question basically is if Bristol City Council are still refusing to join the plant-based treaty and plant-based councils, what are the reasons?
Thanks very much for coming, and thanks for you and your colleagues bringing this issue up a number of times. As you know, the plant-based treaty is a proposed document to be signed by governments internationally. However, some authorities have supported it, and a number of councillors here have supported it, including myself. And that's a matter for me personally to suggest that I think the government should support that. Plant-based council initiative is something the council has to decide. And both myself and Deputy Leader Councillor Mack have previously proposed motions and tabled statements that support it. We would have to bring something to a committee. We would have to have a basis that can get the agreement either of a majority in committee, if not unanimous, or a majority of council, if not unanimous. Council is 70 people, so it's not in one person's hands. This is not an authority led by a single mayor who makes his own decisions now. So it's something we're trying to bring forward, and as the answer I've got for you says, we now have carbon-labelled food in our own staff catering, which helps people make low-carbon and plant-based choices. We are proposing to bring something to a committee that identifies what the council can agree is a sustainable food policy, because it's got to be something relevant to the council that we can act on directly or indirectly. Making a simple declaration is not something I think is even worth doing. We have to do something we're prepared to commit time and resources to. And that will take a bit of development, and we need to know what's relevant for the council to support to enhance lower impact choices in diet, which people make for themselves. And that's something we're working on and we'll bring forward in the next year. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to note, Councillor Hornchin and myself, Councillor Giovanni, have also submitted motions on the plant-based treaty as well. So let's move on to public question 19 from Terry Brahma. Is Terry here? Terry, this is about the South Bristol Liberal neighbourhood. You've got 2 supplementaries for Councillor Plowden, please. I think this might be the last question, depending on the length of the answers.
Yes, Councillor Plowden. I first of all really do need to say that the South Bristol Livable Neighbourhoods is not anything like the residence parking zones. It's a very, very different matter, much more layered, much more nuanced, a lot more concern about it. So I would, with respect, ask you not to compare the two, because they're not comparable and shouldn't be dealt with in the same way. But the one thing that I do want to say that I think is important...
Terry, you have a chance to ask some supplementary questions rather than a statement.
The question is, on the radio, we were told by a councillor that if enough people didn't want the livable neighbourhoods, they wouldn't go ahead. That was said. And so why does the council keep saying that it's going to go ahead with tweaks? Can you please answer that for me?
I don't think I said it was going ahead with tweaks. I think what I'm trying to say is that we're listening to people, we're willing to engage with people. We've had a total number of responses to the survey of 4,809. That's a huge response, including 16,000 free text comments. So we're working through all of that at the moment. We're really trying to understand what people are thinking and saying and telling us. And there are a lot of people who are very passionately in favour of this. I completely accept that it's not the same as residence parking, although in some areas of the South Bristol livable neighbourhood that's all it is, because we have made the decision not to roll it out across the whole area, having learnt from the East Bristol experience, and this is a much larger area, but rather to, as you say, to work with the areas that demonstrated the most acceptance of change, which was 3 areas out of the 11 that we've looked at in this area. So the fact of the matter is, we're going to take a time and care and our due diligence to go through that enormous response to the engagement, and then work with residents and the ward members to determine what the best way forward is.
My supplementary part 2 is, given that the livable neighbourhoods, so far as I'm aware, has to have no through roads, I think that is one of the stipulations of getting the money from WECA, is that there can be no through roads through Southville. So is there any possibility that we can have something that brings in a lot of things people want and deals with a lot of concerns that we have that is not to do with livable neighbourhoods? Is there any option apart from livable neighbourhoods?
I think the answer to that is yes. What we have to do, the funding hasn't actually been agreed for this in full at the moment. We need to submit a business case. So the answer is, depending on what we propose, we'll need to go through a business case development process as set out by Department for Transport, which WECA administers. And if that shows that there is a required benefit, return on investment, then we will go ahead with it. And if it doesn't, then obviously we won't be able to do that. There's nothing set in stone at the moment. We have to come up with something that's acceptable to people, model what that will do in terms of government, the Treasury Green Book and the Department for Transport appraisal methods. And that will give us whether or not this is good value for money. And that's the key decision. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's no through roads between those two spots. But as you'll understand, if we close some roads and not others, then that might just mean that there's disadvantage for some. And I know that some people are already feeling that, and that's why we're really taking our time and trouble to do due diligence and really understand what people think. And I think that's what Tony, Councillor Dyer, was trying to get across on the radio, was that this is not a done deal, and we are very much listening and engaging with people. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you very much for that question. Thank you, Councillor Plowden. We're out of time now for public forum, so thank you very much, everyone, for coming along today. I'd like to inform members of the public that we will have an adjournment at today's meeting, which is expected at 3:30. So I invite you to remain behind if you'd like to hear the other agenda items. If you are leaving now, please could I ask you to leave as quietly as possible so that we can get on with the rest of the day's business. Thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda is agenda item 7, petitions notified by councillors. There were no councillor petitions received for today's meeting. So we'll now move on to agenda item 8, which is the petition debate, Save Bristol Blue Glass. And I note that the owner of Bristol Blue Glass is in the public gallery, so welcome Suzanne Adlington to today's meeting. So this report is for noting. And I'd like to call on Councillor Joss Clark to present the petition report. Councillor Clark, you've got 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, fellow councillors and members of the public. Today we debate a petition that has easily surpassed the threshold for discussion with over 3,700 qualifying signatures and 7,014 signatures collected, reflecting the strength of public feeling to save Bristol Blue Glass. The disparity in numbers of signatures simply reflects the strength of feeling about this business from this country and as far afield as Australia and New Zealand. This is a piece of Bristol's soul, along with Cameron Balloons. Bristol Blue Glass is not simply glass. It's a craft that tells our city's story, a tradition dating back to the 17th century and was revived in the 1980s as part of our heritage, our identity, and our pride. Bristol has a long tradition of glassmaking, with references dating back to the 13th century. By the end of the 17th century, the local glass industry was firmly established, and the use of cobalt and lead oxide in the process meant Bristol became most famous for its Bristol Blue Glass. Heritage crafts like Bristol Blue Glass are part of Bristol's visitor economy, which accounts for around 50% of the total visitor economy in the west of England. And Bristol's cultural sector alone generates over £890 million in economic and social impact. This dates from 23-24, including £176 million in jobs and wages. This is why preserving Bristol Blue Glass matters, not just for our heritage, but for jobs, tourism and Bristol's reputation as a cultural hub. I've got a lot of
There's a lot of feedback there, isn't it, Councillor Clark? Sorry about that. We're obviously having teething trouble with our new system. If you maybe use a neighbouring speaker, see if that helps.
Is that better? Is that better? Currently, Bristol Blue Glass faces an uncertain and challenging future. Without these premises, jobs will be lost and a centuries-old craft could disappear from our city. This is not just about bricks and mortar, it is about preserving a living tradition. With the support of Councillor Brown, the council has not stood still, and I understand that the owners have been shown 2 council-owned units. We are not alone in this effort. Several local businesses have stepped forward with offering alternative premises as well. I would also like to thank Visit West for exploring ideas to help Bristol Blue Glass remain a key part of Bristol's visitor economy. The strength of the community support has been overwhelming. The Bristol Blue Glass petition has gathered thousands of signatures, and the voices behind it speak volumes. One supporter wrote, "This is more than glass, it's Bristol's story. We cannot lose this piece of our identity." Suzanne, representing Bristol Blue Glass, wanted me to share her heartfelt message. Thank you for your support in the Save Bristol Blue Glass campaign. Preserving this traditional craft is vital for Bristol's heritage and future. And our very own Councillor Varney rightly said, "I'm quietly hoping that redundancies will not be necessary and Bristol Blue Glass will opt for an alternative site. It would be great if the council were the ones to help save Bristol Blue Glass." So today, I urge this council to reaffirm its commitment to safeguarding Bristol Blue Glass's future. Let us work together, council, private sector and community, to ensure this craft continues to shine for generations to come. Andrew and I will be sorry to see the business potentially leaving Brislington after many years, but we are both firm supporters and wish it well in its new premises, wherever they might be in the city. Because when we protect Bristol Blue Glass, we protect a piece of Bristol itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. And also hello to Becky. I didn't notice Becky sitting there as well. So let's have the round of speakers. So first I'd like to call on Councillor Jenny Bartle to speak on behalf of the Green Group. Jenny.
Hello. Councillor Townsend wrote this, so I'm just reading it on their behalf. They're too poorly to attend, so imagine I'm wearing a nice hat or something. So Bristol Blue Glass is, I think we can all agree, a truly wonderful company, one of our city's leading creative institutions. And I hope I speak for everyone in this chamber, which they're not, when I acknowledge the incredibly challenging retail landscape, particularly for creative industries. Rising rents, soaring energy costs and increasing material prices are all making it harder and harder to make ends meet, even for the most successful businesses. As a fellow creative business owner, I completely understand this struggle. That said, Bristol City Council is not the landlord of the current premises, and we hadn't previously, I don't think, had any contact about the issue. So there's a limit to what the petition can do, but we will congratulate you on an amazing campaign and the profile you've raised for this issue. I think it really shows how important this is to us all. What I can say is that I've been in direct contact with Bristol Blue Glass about their needs. I've asked our property team to look into options and directed them towards the Harbour placemaking expressions of interest process, and have also been told by the High Streets team that they are working to assist Bristol Blue Glass. So, in short, since the issue was brought to the Council's attention, it has started doing what it can to assist, and I really hope a new premises can be found in good time.
Thank you, Councillor Bartle. And now Councillor Golgin to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I'd like to thank the petitioners and the 7,000 signatories for bringing this to full council. This is a hugely important issue, one which I hope and I think we're going to have cross-party support on. Bristol Blue Glass is a renowned icon of our city, so much so that Bristol Blue is its own colour, and even our taxis have to be painted in order to get a licence. But if the suspension bridge needed repairs, the public would expect the council to sort it out. If the balloon fiesta wasn't going ahead, and I'm not going to talk about the late discussions that went on this year, we would be expected to step in. If Bristol Blue Glass is being evicted, the council and every single councillor here should do everything we can to support it. So blue glass was first blown by the Mesopotamians, then the Romans, and now the Bristolians. I've obviously skipped through a bit of history there. but the point is, and we've seen protests about this recently, this is a real issue of civic pride, and it would be an act of cultural vandalism if we were to let this business go under. I understand that it's a private landlord evicting the tenants and not us, but we must not just sit on our hands whilst one of the most recognisable symbols for this city is quite literally shattered. In the nationality ceremonies that we have, we used to give away a little coin. Now, actually, we give away a little bit of blue glass, and I think it's a really nice way to welcome people to British citizenship. The Strategy and Resource Committee has been flogging off council buildings from Avonmouth to Stockwood, and I'm sure that one of these buildings could or would have been suitable, even if renting rather than selling it doesn't bring in the paycheck that we'd like. So we need to support this business and convene our city partners. That's what we can do, to see what can be done. I'm sure with enough effort and willpower, it could find Bristol Blue Glass a permanent home and secure its future for generations to come. Glass blowing is a rare trade, one which we should support. And I'm sure if we put our minds to it, we could make a tourist attraction out of it as well. Thank you. Once jobs of this nature go, they will be gone for good. And more generally, the council should do everything it can to support Bristol's small businesses and its creative sector. The creative sector in Bristol is one of our strongest assets. So too is our city's unique history and heritage. And Bristol Blue Glass sits at the intersection of our culture and history. Clearly, efforts to save it need to be redoubled. And having spoken to the management about this while researching the speech, this is so incredibly urgent. It must be resolved by February, or it could be terminally too late. So I urge this administration not to, blow this chance to save Bristol Blue Glass for now and for future generations. And if there's anything we can do as a Labour group, we will. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Goggin. And now Councillor Andrew Brown to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat group. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. So I'm standing with three hats on today. So the first hat is the hat of someone who has drawn his mother in the family Secret Santa and is now looking for a suitable gift for Christmas, and I might be popping into Bristol Blue Glass specifically to get that. My mum, it might come as a surprise, but my mum doesn't actually watch my appearances in this chamber. The second hat is as our speaker in the round for this debate, and I'm not really going to add much to what's already been said. We've heard, about the essential role of glass making in Bristol's history. We've heard it acknowledged as one of the key creative endeavours within the city, and we've heard the word icon, which I think sums it all up very well. So I'm not going to dwell too much on that aspect, other than to congratulate the petitioner, yourself, Deputy Lord Mayor, and indeed, in collecting all the signatures, and acknowledge the owner's attendance in the public gallery, and congratulate everyone on the effort that has gone into getting this large number of signatures in such a short period of time to draw attention to this key issue. But the third hat I have is as Chair of Economy and Skills Committee, and of course you came to speak to me about this issue, and I engaged with my officers both in economic development and elsewhere within the Council to see if there was anything we could do to help the situation for Bristol Blue Glass, identify additional premises, look at what assistance could be done in terms of identifying those in the first place, and then maybe taking that forward to see if there's solutions either within the Council's property estate itself or within the wider city in order to preserve the business for the long term and keep it here in Bristol as an essential part of our retail and creative sector. So I can't really say much more on that, obviously, but other than what I said to Councillor Eddy in response to his questions in Members' Forum earlier on, which is, we have sought to do what we can do to identify additional premises or new premises that meet the requirements, which are quite complex given the nature of the business, and I will keep across that, developments of that over the coming weeks and into the new year, in the hope that we can find a sustainable long-term solution and we can retain the business in the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, Councillor Rich Eddy is going to speak on behalf of the Conservative group. And I noticed, Councillor Eddy, you've got a Bristol Blue mobility aid today, so wonderful.
Absolutely, Lord Deputy Lord Mayor. Marvin Rees infamously said he did not identify with the Brunel, bridges and balloons image of our city of Bristol. Perhaps this helps to explain why the former mayor had no great love for the city and why he loved jetting off elsewhere whenever he could. He left out of the short list Bristol Blue Glass, which the city has been famous for, as others have said, for centuries, and as a redoubtable city tradition which invites purchasers from Bristolians and visitors alike. The Bristol Blue Glass Company, established in 1988, continues this famous tradition and is a manufacturing jewel in this city's crown. Councillor Andrew Varney, our distinguished chairman today, of course, is to be congratulated for launching this petition, and so are the people who've signed it, hitting the threshold for bringing it here for debate. From the replies to my question to Councillor Brown earlier, it seems Bristol City Council is working hard to actually help seek to assist the company to relocate. I wish them every success. Finally, it does raise a more general matter though. As members will be aware, there has recently been major regeneration moving from employment uses to residential in various locations in the city, particularly Bedminster Green and also now St Philip's Marsh. Whilst development may be welcome, we must do all in our capacity to assist the often long-established businesses to relocate, not only so they can thrive with certainty, but also that we can support the jobs and the families which depend upon them. Let us do that.
Thank you, Councillor Eddy. So the petition will now be referred to the leader or relevant policy committee chair for a formal response, and that concludes agenda item 8. Let's move on to agenda item 9, the Treasury Management Mid-Year Report 2025 to 2026. This report is for noting. I'd like to call on Councillor Sarah Classic to move the report. Councillor Classic, you've got 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. So I rise to move the Treasury Management Mid-Year Report for 2025-26. As stated, reports for noting only, so no policy changes, no decision today, but it is an important moment to reflect on how we are managing Bristol's finances in a very challenging national context. What does this report tell us? The Council continues to comply with all prudential indicators and codes. Our borrowing and investment decisions remain affordable, prudent and sustainable, which is essential when local government finances are under unprecedented strain. We have a medium-term borrowing requirement of 326 million, driven by housing and infrastructure investment. For this year, borrowing is lower than forecast because of capital reprofiling, but we still expect to borrow around 200 million to keep projects moving. Interest rates have started to fall. Bank of England business base rate is now 4%, expected to drop to 3.75 in February. But inflation remains stubborn at 3.8%. These pressures mean every pound we borrow costs more, and every delay in fair funding from central government makes it harder to plan. But despite this, our investments are performing well. And we've launched innovative schemes like the 1.5 million Climate Action Municipal Bond, giving residents a chance to invest in Bristol's green future. But let's be clear, local government is still in crisis. All across the country, councils are still warning of insolvency. The cost of borrowing, even at falling rates, is a real risk. And while we do everything we can to manage our resources responsibly, we cannot ignore the bigger picture. We need a fair funding settlement from the Labour government. We need an economic plan that tackles inflation and supports growth, so councils aren't forced to choose between cutting services and cancelling investment. Bristol is doing its part, managing risk, innovating and planning for the long term. But without national action, the pressure on local budgets will continue to threaten the services our residents rely on. This report shows that Bristol is acting prudently and creatively, but it also underlines why we must keep pressing a fair funding and sustainable future for local government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Patrick McAllister, speak on behalf of the Green Group, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It seems only yesterday I was welcoming the 24-25 Treasury Management Outturn Report, and today I'm welcoming the 2025-26 Mid-Year Report. So I hope members will forgive me if my speech repeats a few of the common themes. But once again, a quick thank you to members and officers in the audit and finance teams who've got oversight of Treasury management for doing an excellent job with this report, which confirms that Council is operating within its prudential and statutory limits and details how we are sensibly taking advantage of opportunities to reschedule our debts to help generate savings on interest payments. One such restructure has saved £111,000 a year, others are being considered in the future. This administration is carefully handling its high levels of debt handed down by the previous administration to help reduce cost and direct money towards the services that matter for Bristolians. In particular, we welcome the section of the report detailing progress made through the Bristol Climate Action Investment Programme, which has raised £1.5 million, 50% more than its original target, helping to directly fund local climate projects in the city. Now, we all know the difficulties that local councils are facing, as Councillor Classic outlined. Continued underfunding of councils up and down the country is causing immense financial difficulties for us. And in this context, there are two particular frustrations which stand out for this report from me. The first is that the council's reserves have been adversely impacted by shifts in the dedicated schools grant. Members are aware of the difficulties at the national level with DSG budgets, but it is frustrating that the noises from the UK government on this issue seem to resemble that of a can being kicked down the road into the long grass. And secondly, Councillor Logan rightly pointed out in his speech last month on the Outturn report that the council was seeing some delays to infrastructure works, and that's reflected in some of the figures in this report. There are many reasons for this. There are general viability pressures and challenges in the construction industry nationwide and regionally, and a severe labour shortage. I can assure the council that where there are blockages to delivering on works, they will not have arisen from a lack of political will from this administration. We want to get Bristol moving, building, to provide the good quality homes, infrastructure and climate resilience that Bristolians deserve. The circumstances may be difficult. We remain committed to this goal, and this report details how we aim to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Councillor Tom Reynard to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And firstly, my thanks to officers as well for the work on this report. It's detailed, thorough, provides a summary of the Council's complex capital strategy in a digestible format, along with the relevant national data sets. On the face of it, this capital strategy looks sensible and prudent. Both the finance team and sustainability team deserve credit for their work on the Climate Action Investment Fund, which I know others have referenced. It is a welcome initiative, providing the opportunity for residents to invest directly in local climate projects through a community municipal investment, offering a fixed return over a defined term. As a Labour and cooperative councillor who is passionate about the work we can do to ensure local people have a stake in their future, we should explore the potential to do more of this, in line with the community wealth building principles outlined in the city's economic strategy. So, considering that the 1 million target was exceeding investment total of 1.5 million, I'd be interested to know whether there's plans to open it up again in the future, as it seems like the appetite is there. We do think, though, that the council could be spending more on projects that return an investment. There is significant headroom that will open up in the HRA in years to come, so there's no reason to use that, not to use that to restore at least some of the cuts to the council house building pipeline. We must also be mindful of the approach to borrowing and selling off of assets to ensure the capital projects are delivered to time and budget, given recent reports of projected underspend of over £100 million this financial year. The council has started selling off assets to generate revenue for the council, and that could end up leading to more service cuts from this Green-led administration. The report is a bit gloomy in parts, and there are omissions, so a bit of additional context. The FTSE is referenced, but it admits that it's at near record highs. The report references the minimum wage increase. This Labour government is making work pay and delivering the biggest upgrade to workers' rights in a generation. It also includes closing the historic gap in minimum wage rates between older and younger people. This will deliver a wage boost for millions, along with making work more secure for millions too. I hope this flagship legislation will soon get through the blockages in the House of Lords and receive royal assent. And a paragraph of this also covers the UK's high gilt rate, which they haven't recovered really from Liz Truss's disastrous mini-budget. The Tories may want you to forget that month ever happened, but clearly the Council's finance team are still very mindful of its effects. This report really draws a light to the importance of sound economic and financial policies. We've recently heard Green Party leader talking about how the Bank of England shouldn't pay interest on commercial reserves, and also getting his figures in a bit of a muddle on debt and deficits. It's a shame the Treasury management advisors aren't here today, as I would love to ask them, in their professional opinion, what the consequences would be of this. I expect inflation and higher interest rates are probably the best case scenario. There's one more thing I just want to touch on finally, in closing. We need to ensure that we're not carrying out wasteful spending decisions, whether that be Tap Watergate, the failed privatisation of the Bottle Yard Studios costing taxpayers 430 grand, the exec director that wasn't budgeted for, that's going to cost us 216 grand, or over 1 million lost due to children's homes in Bristol sitting empty. There is much more to do. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. And now Councillor Jonathan Hucker to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. The report contains a lot of macroeconomic data. However, I will confine my comments to matters specific to Bristol City Council. The Council prioritises security and liquidity over yield in its Treasury investments, investing in high-quality, low-risk counterparties, which is an entirely sensible approach. It achieves a satisfactory return, which broadly aligns with the benchmark Sterling Overnight Index average rate. The investments are repayable on demand, which provides maximum flexibility. However, on the other side of the ledger, debt, even when you exclude PFI, is expected to increase by 200 million this year, from 600 million to 800 million. Despite this alarming increase, I take some comfort from the fact that there is still headroom under the various financial covenants. Despite debt increasing by 200 million, the increase in borrowings to fund CapEx is forecast to be 133 million, a difference of 67 million. Ideally, you would want the two figures to be in much closer alignment. The difference between the two must be due to adverse movements on cash items in the comprehensive income and expenditure account and net working capital movements. I believe that a Treasury management report should at least contain a cash flow forecast to provide transparency on this. Drawdowns have been made on a relatively short-term basis, which seems sensible given the expected trajectory for interest rates. Although short-dated gilt yields reflect expected movements in bank rates, medium to long-dated yields, as well as being influenced by the inflation outlook, also includes a risk premium priced into UK government debt by investors. Any future long-term borrowing from the PWLB will be impacted by this. I think there are things that could be done to reduce the debt pile. For example, the council needs to improve its performance on debt collection. Invoices with 30-day payment terms take on average 4.5 months to collect. This would not be remotely acceptable in the private sector. There have been some serious self-inflicted wounds. Local authorities have a duty to collect council tax. However, the decision to suspend debt recovery activity during the pandemic has resulted in an accumulation of aged debt that is now unlikely ever to be collected. This and other poor decisions have all made a significant contribution to the council's mounting debt pile.
Thank you. Exactly 3 minutes. Well, that concludes agenda item 9. So now let's move on to agenda item 10, which is the Disability Equality Commission Annual Report and Bristol City Council Disability Equity Action Plan 2025 to 2028. I'd like to call on Alan Davis to present the report as the Commission Chair. Alan, you've got 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Better not to wreck the microphone, I suspect. I am presenting the annual report on behalf of the Disability Equality Commission, which, as members will read, is the last report of the Commission. The Commission took the decision in autumn this year to end its work at the end of December. We haven't done this in any spirit of being fed up or angry. We believe that the situation has changed over the 4 years we've existed. Back then, 4 years ago, disability equality was not a high priority for this City Council. Disabled people's organisations were not working well together. During the time of the Commission, disability equality is much higher up the agenda due to our influence, I hope. And disabled people's organisations, because they all came together in the Commission, are now working much more well together. And with the relaunch and revitalisation of the Bristol Disability Equality Forum, we now have a genuine voice and influence body which can carry on the work of the Commission. The Commission has also achieved several important things in its own right, supporting the work to improve the situation of disabled employees in the city, working with health services to improve the situation of disabled people experiencing health services, and also helping the City Council develop its first accessible communication policy. So we believe there is a positive future. We believe that future is largely resting upon the Disability Equality Action Plan, which we have worked with policy chairs and the Chief Executive and Leader to develop. I obviously commend it to you to support when you support the report. We believe it's full of pragmatic and achievable actions which will take significant steps in achieving disability equality over the next 5 years. I just want to highlight one key thing in there, and that's housing. There are thousands of disabled people in this city today who cannot get the basic human right of housing, whether that's affordability, whether that's lack of accessible housing, whether that's discrimination in private sector housing. The situation that many disabled people face in this city in terms of housing, if people described it as a crisis and a disgrace, I would find it hard not to agree with that sentiment. We have to do something about it. The actions in the action plan go some way to doing that. But we believe that all the City Council should lead by getting all the agencies involved in housing together to come up with an action plan that comes to Council in 1 year's time to say how you are going to sort it out. In terms of thanks, I obviously want to thank all the commissioners, the 13 who have been part of the Commission. Their individual commitment and energy is the sole reason why we have achieved anything. Thank you to the Lord Mayor for writing to us all to thank us for our time, and thank you for him offering us a reception next year. I obviously want to thank the Mayor, previous Mayor who set up the Commission, and the Leader of Council now, who has continued to support it, and to all officers at every level in the Council who have shown nothing but support and commitment to our issues. They are a tribute to the City Council. I want to single 3 councillors out in particular. Councillor Eddy, because although we've never agreed on anything politically, he's made me laugh much more than anybody else. Councillor Plowden for his commitment to talking to disabled people, through setting up the Disabled People Strategic Transport Forum. That is a model of co-production engagement the rest of the Council could look to and build on. And finally, to Councillor Blake. His advice and support over the years, to me personally, has been tremendous. The work that he's done on disabled people's issues and his movement, his passing of that, his proposing of the Golden Motion last October was a game changer. For many disabled people in the city, it meant times they are changing. You will know, members, that I've taken this opportunity to resign from all activity in the city. After 40 years, even I've got fed up with the sound of my own voice, so heaven knows what the rest of you think. I leave satisfied that I have played a small role in improving the lives of disabled people, both in this city and across the country. I leave disappointed at the fact that hundreds of disabled people still face daily discrimination and prejudice, either from individuals or from organisations. But I leave optimistic that the way forward has to be, it can only be, nothing about us without us. It has been my conviction over the last 40 years that disabled people have to be at the heart of decision-making about their own lives and services and collective. If as a city council you do not achieve that, you will not achieve your aspiration of being the most accessible city by 2035, or be the city disabled people will be proud to live in. I will have more chance of getting my driving licence than you achieving those things if you don't listen to us and involve us. Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor, and thank you, Bristol, for the opportunity to serve. It has been an honour and a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, before I move this report, I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank the Commissioners, and especially the Chair, Alan Davis, for their contribution to improving disability equality in Bristol. Throughout the time of the Commission, there have been several notable achievements, from supporting the Council in developing its accessible communications policy, organising hustings around the elections, working with services such as adult social care and children's to embed disabled people's perspectives, and recently supporting the Council to bring forward an accessible city golden motion. The Commission's influence has extended beyond the Council. Commissioners have also provided guidance for key partners such as the police and health organisations, advocating for disabled people's voices to be embedded into all public sector services. The Chair and Commissioners have dedicated their time voluntarily, and I want to thank them personally for their commitment to making Bristol a better place to live and work for disabled people. A special thank you to Alan Davis, who has been a tireless advocate for disabled people since 1991. I wish them all the best of luck for all their future endeavours. Thank you very much, Alan. So I am moving the report, and I'd like to ask the former Lord Mayor to second the report.
Thank you. I will second that and reserve all my remarks except to say, Alan, we will never tire of your voice.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gogging. So now I'd like to call on Councillor Al Maghrabi to speak on behalf of the Green Group. Al.
Excellent. Thank you, Lord Mayor. So today, we're asked to note the final annual report of Bristol's Disability Equality Commission, and to approve the Disability Equity Action Plan that will carry its work forward. As the Commission prepares to cease operations at the end of 2025, we must recognise both the scale and the challenge and the contribution of those who have worked tirelessly to advance disability equality in our city. Bristol City Council has clear statutory duties under the Equalities Act of 2010 to anticipate and provide reasonable adjustments to remove barriers for disabled residents and colleagues, and eliminate discrimination, harassment, and victimization. These are not optional. That they are basics of a fair and inclusive city. One of my fellow disabled colleagues, Councillor George Callis-Coney, has shared a strong story that shows how far we still have to go. George was attending his grandfather's wake when a bouncer refused to let him into the venue. Refused to let him in. The bouncer believed that he was. The bouncer believed he was drunk, when in fact what they were saying was the effect of George's cerebral palsy. Instead of being treated as a grieving family member, he was told to go round the back to see the head bouncer, while his cousin was allowed to remain inside. George has emphasised how humiliating and isolating this experience has been, and I think it's important that we understand exactly why he was turned down, and that's because society still reads disability as a problem rather than a normal part of human diversity. Stories like George's make it clear that these aren't abstract policy questions. They are about dignity, respect, and the right to be part of everyday life. As a disabled councillor myself, I welcome the honesty of this report and the fact that it doesn't shy from those realities. I know how essential it is that our systems, workplaces, and services remove barriers rather than create them. And as Greens, we believe firmly in the social model of disability accessibility. The understanding that it is society, its structures, and its environments that disable people, not our impairments. That belief must be at the core of how this council designs, delivers, and evaluates every service. That's like how come I'm pleased to see a clear plan to move us from simply acknowledging the problems to actually addressing them. Accessibility and inclusion must be built in from the start, not attached on at the end. This action plan gives us a framework, but it's our job as like councillors to turn these commitments into actual change for disabled people. I welcome the report, and I think the commission for its hard work, and I support the progression of the disability equity action plan to full council. Thank you. Thanks, sir. Cheers. Yeah, man, sound.
Thank you, Councillor Al-Maghrabi. And now Councillor Zoe Peat to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
Thanks.
I would like to firstly extend my thanks to Alan, the officers and the Commission members who have put this report together. I really do appreciate the depth and nuance that it provides, as well as your dedication and resilience in championing the rights of our city's disabled residents. There have been some great achievements over the last 40 years, with significant successes in making housing, public buildings, transport, and the way that we communicate more accessible to people living with disabilities. This has been a cross-party effort over the last 4 years, and I'm grateful to everyone in this chamber who has played a part in making our city more disability-friendly in one way or another. That said, this report also gives us clear indication of where we still need to improve, and has made me reflect on the different ways we have potentially overlooked our disabled residents, at least from what I have seen over the last year since I was elected. In October 2024, Councillor Kelvin Blake brought forward a truly groundbreaking motion at full council to make Bristol the most accessible city in the UK. While that motion did pass unanimously, it was first watered down through amendments to simply make it more accessible, which I find unfortunate. We can also look to the scandals that surround the East Bristol Liverpool neighbourhoods, where many residents have said that the changes made or proposed would make their lives significantly harder. Furthermore, as a local authority, we were the slowest in the country to complete SEND assessments in February of this year, with only 1% completed within the 20-week deadline. All of this, unfortunately, paints a clear picture that we still have much more to do. I want to touch on some of the statistics in this report, namely that people with disabilities have the lowest net better score, meaning they experience the lowest quality of life in Bristol. Not only that, but they are also twice as likely to live in socially rented accommodation. All of this is happening in a city which is the second most expensive to live in England, and one where the current administration refuses to build council homes that our city desperately needs, while also turning much of our remaining stock into temporary accommodation. As a side note, I would genuinely be interested to know how many of these properties are fitted with accessible features. But because it is my point of view that if we are truly serious about increasing the net better score, then we also must do better. we must provide more homes that are genuinely affordable for disabled residents. We must think more intentionally about the decisions made in this chamber and how they impact disabled residents too. They are telling us what they need, so it's time that we finally listen and give it to them.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah Classic on behalf of the Lib Dem Group.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. Today we are asked to note the final report from the Disability Equality Commission and approve the Disability Equity Action Plan. This is a significant moment for Bristol. The Commission, under the leadership of Alan Davis, has worked tirelessly since 2021 to put disability equality firmly on the city's agenda. Their achievements, from embedding accessible communication policies to improving engagement with disabled people's organisations, deserve our thanks and recognition, and I want to pay tribute to Alan and all the commissioners for their dedication and public service. But let us be clear, while the Commission's work has raised the bar, it has also shone a light on how far we still have to go. Bristol's own Quality of Life survey shows disabled people have the poorest outcomes of any group in the city. Almost 40% of disabled adults have no qualifications, and they are twice as likely to live in social housing. Employment gaps remain stubbornly high, with nearly 30 percentage points behind non-disabled people. These are not abstract statistics. They represent real lives, and they tell us that equality is still not a lived reality for thousands of Bristolians. The action plan before us is ambitious and rightly cross-cutting, covering housing, transport, workforce, children's services and the economy. It commits to co-production, to embedding the social model of disability, and to practical steps like improving accessible housing delivery and achieving disability-confident leader status. These are the right priorities, but plans on paper must translate into action on the ground. We cannot allow this to become another glossy document that gathers dust while disabled people continue to face barriers. And this is why we should all be holding this chamber to account on delivering on these commitments. Engagement with disabled people's organisations must be meaningful, not tokenistic. Reasonable adjustments must be implemented promptly, not after months of delay, and we must ensure that financial pressures do not quietly erode these promises. Let us take forward the Commission's parting message: nothing about us without us. If Bristol is to become the most accessible city by 2035, as we have pledged, then disabled people must be at the heart of every decision we make, not consulted as an afterthought, but involved from the start. So today, let's thank the Commission for its work, approve the action plan and commit as a council to turning words into action, because equality delayed is equality denied. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Classic. And now Councillor Mark Weston on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you very much, my Deputy Lord Mayor. First of all, can I thank Alan and the Commission for everything you've done. It is a job well done. I'm sure you've earned your retirement, and I look forward to your driving lessons, as you described it, in the future. It's going to be interesting on the roads. But don't worry, once Ed Plowden's done, you won't be able to drive anywhere. Sorry, Ed. Merry Christmas. Yeah, I'm afraid I'm rising to throw a few spanners in the works on the action plan. The annual report I very much welcome. My fear is the action plan is the council tapping itself on the back, but actually we're failing to deliver already, and I'm concerned we're going to fail again. If you look through the action plan itself, for example, you look at page 3, we're talking about communications. I don't think we emphasise enough that we talk about digital, and everyone has to go online and have to access it. I mean, if you talk to your residents, I mean, your inboxes must be like mine, or rather, they don't even get to the inboxes because they phone, because they're not online. And actually, elderly people and some the disabled people can't get a service. I had one poor chap phone me up. He couldn't find the waste collection rota for next year. He phoned the council up. He was on hold for an hour, and then he got through someone, and then he got cut off. And he phoned me, and I printed it off and took it round to him. Little things, for us, are mundane. But actually, it's really hard for him to do it, and we fail that. We fail that test. We look again at housing. We talk about scooter storage on page 9. You must have this. We talk about high-rise, but actually we have low-rise blocks as well, which need scooters. They can't get them up the stairs. They don't levitate yet. And we don't provide storage. When you talk to a housing officer, it's all, oh, well, we're looking into it. Well, how long do you need to look into it? This gets kicked down the line all the time because it's not a priority. Now, housing officers are massively overworked. Remember, I'm sure you wait on every one of my speeches. But I made it point last time that actually we get complaints, and our solution is to hire more complaints officers, not more housing officers. So the housing officers remained overworked. They can't tackle the backlog. We get more complaints. This is a vicious circle, and that lets down disabled people. City transport, disabled people. I'm afraid to say at the EBLN, Park Street, we're actually going to make things harder for disabled people. We're not going to improve it. And it's been mentioned once, and thank you on this, education. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, do you want to have a look at the education section itself? There's no mention of real children's education or ECHP in there at all. You look at the page section on it, we're devoid of that. We should be talking about how we engage with young people and their families and care for them and provide the support they need to become the adults that they want to be, their aspirations. It's great we're talking about recruitment, but actually, in order for us to recruit them, they've got to get through the education process, and actually the section on that is almost non-existent. So, we'll vote for it. Yeah, it's great as far as it goes. But actually, there are gaping holes in this strategy, my Lord Mayor. So, yes, thank you to the Commission. Welcome the strategy, but it needs a bit of work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My Deputy Lord Mayor, may I have a right of response to that, please? I've been very clear throughout that the key problem facing Bristol is congestion, and a lot of people using single-occupancy cars, many of whom do have alternatives. And I passionately believe that those who are not able to use other alternatives and are dependent on their cars, whether they be disabled people, whether they be tradespeople, it should make it easier for them to get around, because we should see those people who are not dependent on cars using alternatives. I'd also like another point of order, please, my Lord Mayor. I notice in the report and in one of the speeches today we've used the term disabilities. People with disabilities is not the social model of disability, it is disabled people. And I think we need to be very careful to watch our language in this space. In the report we have, it says that we need to take steps to take account of disabled persons' disabilities. I think the correct term is impairments. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Plowden, for raising that point of order, and I hope the report authors can bear that in mind. Thank you very much. So we move to the vote, which will be an aye, nay vote. The recommendation is shown on the screen and is on the report in your agenda pack. So all those in favour say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. So the recommendation is approved, and that concludes agenda item 10. Let's move on very speedily to agenda item 11, update to local code of corporate governance. This report is for noting. I'd like to call on Councillor Nicholas Coombs to move the report as Chair of Audit Committee. Councillor Coombs.
Thank you. I have indeed been Chair of Audit Committee on one occasion, but for now, as Vice Chair, I'm filling in for Rob Logan. You can see grey suit, red tie, and soon there shall be a joke about this being the most exciting item on the agenda. So you're probably wondering, didn't we update the local code of corporate governance last year? And the answer is yes, we did, but now we have done it again. We've added in several new pages at the beginning, and there's even a diagram in this iteration. A tracked change version would be helpful, I think, but we have not been able to obtain one of those. Maybe next year. We use this code as a descriptive document to set out how Bristol's corporate governance aligns with the requirements of the CIPFA framework. The Audit Committee approved this updated description last month, so I then invite you to note the work that we have been doing to provide the most exciting item on the agenda this evening.
Thank you, and this report is for noting, and so that concludes agenda item 11. Agenda item 12 is the allocation of committee seats. I'd like to move the report and ask the former Lord Mayor to second the report.
I'd like to second it, reserving my remarks, except for a strange sense of deja vu.
I hope not. So thank you very much. And once again, the recommendation is shown on the screen and is on the report in your agenda pack. So all those in favour say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. So that recommendation is approved. And that concludes agenda item 12. We will now have an adjournment for 20 minutes. I make it 3:35. Should we be back here at 3:55? Is that 20? Yeah. Okay. Quiet very quickly. Very well behaved. I'm impressed. So let's move on to agenda item 13, which is an altered Golden motion from the Conservative group, and this is entitled No to New Digital Identity Card Plan. Now, the motion will be shown on the screen in the room during the proposing speech. This motion has been altered, which means the wording has been changed with the consent of all parties. The updated wording was published before the meeting. So I'd now like to ask Councillor John Galandris of the Conservative group to move the motion.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I rise to move the motion urging the government to scrap its abhorrent plans to introduce digital ID cards. The last Labour government rightly consigned its ID card scheme to the dustbin, and even Andy Burnham, the ID cards minister under Tony Blair, agrees that's where it should remain. Digital ID cards were not in the recent Labour Party manifesto, so their sudden Deus Ex Machina appearance is all the more controversial. Then again, the ending of trial by jury after 800 years and the cancellation of local elections for millions were also not in the Labour Party manifesto. ID cards are emblematic of bureaucratic overreach and state interference in our daily personal lives. ID cards represent a fundamental threat to privacy and are incompatible with our national values of liberty and personal freedom. The reasons stated by the government for their introduction are bogus and specious. They won't make life easier for us, and they definitely won't stop the boats. Digital ID cards also pose a very serious cybersecurity risk. State-sponsored hackers would have little difficulty in accessing and, more worryingly, changing and corrupting the data. That's a massive risk no government should entertain. Aside from hacking, there is the serious issue of digital exclusion. Not everyone is tech-savvy or the owner of a smartphone. There is one other huge elephant in the room: the sheer cost of such a scheme. The OBR estimates the cost would be a minimum of £1.8 billion. Now, we all know what happens with government IT projects. They are never, ever on budget. At a time when many people and public bodies, including local councils, are struggling with the cost of living, the last thing the government should be doing is wasting billions of pounds of taxpayer money on a scheme opposed by so many. In summary, we have already many ways of establishing our identity: passports, driver's licenses, national insurance numbers, electoral roll registration, to name but a few. We definitely don't need expensive digital ID cards. The government will know all this, of course, which makes me all the more suspicious of the government's motivation. It appears to me to be part of an undisclosed plan for the state to control our lives more closely, a unifying digital ID scheme which will give government bureaucrats hitherto unknown surveillance and control over our personal lives. Members, please defend personal freedom and privacy. Please reject digital ID cards and support our motion. Thank you.
And now Councillor Richard Eddy to second the motion.
Deputy Lord Mayor, I'm sorry if I appear somewhat discombobulated. I was expecting Councillor Goulandras to use Latin, but he seems to have omitted that, sadly. Anyway, on to my speech. Devotees of fiction, or those who read Labour Party election manifestos or follow Rachel Reeves' budget speeches, will recognise the works of the famous British author George Orwell. A lifelong socialist, he was not blind to the risk of people of the world sliding into oppression, living under a totalitarian surveillance state. His Animal Farm book, Allegory, points a vivid picture of animals revolting against a human master, but their newfound, more equal society is soon hijacked by a dictatorship of farmyard pigs. It was a thinly veiled observation of what happened in the 1917 Russian Revolution, where the communists hijacked the fledgling democracy. George Orwell's even more well-known masterpiece is 1984, where this country, now absorbed into a fictional Oceania, is subjected to an authoritarian surveillance dictatorship headed by Big Brother. Now, it's strange, Deputy Lord Mayor. He seems to bear an uncanny resemblance to Keir Starmer. I don't know why. Of course, 1984 is fiction, but with important warnings to each and all of us. Perhaps if today it was modernised, it might more accurately be renamed 2024. For in 2024, we saw the election of Keir Starmer's Labour government. And did it publicly publish beforehand its anti-democratic and un-British intentions, as Councillor Goulandras mentions, to cancel elections, abolish jury trials, and force even more CCTV surveillance upon us? Certainly did not pledge to force upon the British people mandatory digital IDs for those of working age, an authoritarian and a truly totalitarian surveillance state. I urge all members of this House to demonstrate their opposition to this bizarre notion by supporting this motion
Thank you, Councillor Eddy. Thank you very much. So we now move to Councillor Abdul Malik to speak on behalf of the Green Group.
Thank you to you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you to the Conservative Party for bringing this as one of the golden opportunities of a motion, although a little bit worried about where we were going with Councillor Eddy's speech. This is, Deputy Lord Mayor, this is not a matter of process or technology. It's a deliberate political decision, and it's the wrong one. A compulsory digital ID scheme was not in the Labour manifesto. There was no mandate for it, and the public did not vote for it. Yet it's been advanced anyway, quietly, incrementally, wrapped in language about efficiency and convenience that should trouble everyone in this room. Because when governments stop asking permission, democracy weakens. The Green Party has opposed mandatory ID cards for decades, out of principle. These systems always expand. They never stay limited. A card introduced for borders becomes a requirement for housing, for benefits, for healthcare and employment. What starts as optional ends as compulsory. History has already taught us this, and we should learn from that. And this proposal is not emerging in a vacuum, Deputy Lord Mayor. We now have a Labour government proposing to delay the scheduled mayoral elections that we've touched on. Candidates have already been selected. Voters told it's too inconvenient to hear from them again. A Foreign Secretary questioning the service of our juries in this country. Police arresting pensioners, priests and disabled people for silent, peaceful protests. Each step is described as justified, but together, Deputy Lord Mayor, they describe something else entirely. A clear abuse of the Labour government's power and authority. Digital ID sits perfectly within that pattern. It is about control, it's about monitoring, it's about deciding who must prove themselves, when and to whom. And let us be honest about the impact. Global majority communities already live with disproportionate scrutiny. A compulsory ID system will not fall evenly. It never does. Some people will glide through, maybe not questioned all their lives. Others will be stopped, checked and challenged again and again. Bias does not disappear because it's digital, it becomes systematic. We are also asked to trust vast government IT systems that we've seen the incompetency of in many spheres before. Some people will glide, some people will look at this and really question the viability of these systems and who we contract them to. People who cannot get basic services delivered on time are now told to trust the state and with their identity, with their data, and with their daily movements. These schemes will not fix migration policy, it will not restore trust, it will not make Britain freer. We've heard of the estimated costs, £1.8 billion, and that's just an estimate. We just don't find this at this moment in time as being a good way to spend public resource. The Green Group will support this motion today, not because we share every view expressed in it, but because defending fundamental freedoms matters more than party differences. And when the state reaches too far into the lives of its citizens, we all have a duty to push back. Bristol should say very clearly.
Thank you very much. You've had quite enough. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Take a seat now, please. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, let's move on to Councillor Tim Rippington, please.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I also wasn't expecting to give this speech, but unfortunately Councillor Blake has been called away urgently, and I unfortunately don't have access to his speech, but I'll be brief. But the one thing this does give me a chance to do is to raise the issue here of the complete lack of festive wear amongst my councillors. Very disappointed to see that. I just wanted to start by saying that I'm getting really fed up with motions that ask the council to write a letter to government. I know everybody's been guilty of a letter writing motion in the past, but I think our next motion should be no more writing letters to government. And just at that point, I never use... Sorry, I never use technology for this exact reason. It's just gone off on me.
By the way, my tie is covered with Christmas baubles, in case you're wondering. So,
in recent times, we on the Labour benches have sought to bring forward motions that could make a real difference to our residents' lives. We brought forward a motion to make Bristol the UK's most accessible city. It was actioned. Broadmead plans were altered, and the motion has been regularly referenced in transport papers since. Last full council, we brought forward a place efficiency strategy. And today, a member forum response cited that work as being important when deciding how we can spend the government's additional cash for play parks. Now, Councillor Dyer has free will. He can write this letter anyway. It's his party's policy, so I don't think full council endorsement is required. There are some genuine concerns about digital IDs. I recognise that. These concerns, the concerns about digital exclusion in particular, warrant attention, and I'm sure the government will take those concerns on board. But if there's anyone here who thinks that huge amounts of their personal data is not already being stored on the servers of vast corporations with no public oversight, they are sadly mistaken. So we're abstaining on this because while we recognise people's concerns, this motion won't do anything to address them. But I say to my Conservative colleagues, come on, think about how you can contribute by bringing forward constructive proposals to help improve Bristol for its residents, instead of just writing another letter to government. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Councillor Tim Kent to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. We thank the Conservative Group for adopting our suggested changes to the motion. So in 1939, with the country at war and the need to track people and prepare for rationing, the UK introduced ID cards, commonly known as the National Registration Act 1939. It is a misunderstanding that it was brought in to thwart Nazi spies. Apparently they'd worked out how to get a piece of card and write on it. In 1945, the war ended. The Labour government chose to retain the legislation. So a slight side note here, I'm a family historian. I love the National Register because it's full of wonderful information. And interestingly enough, we'll get on to scrapping this in a minute. The government carried on using the database right into the 1980s. So for me, it's a wonderful source of information and a lesson. Beware what you let the government set up, for they will use it whether you know or not. In 1951, Harry Wilcock, a Liberal Party activist, refused to produce an identity card when requested to do so by a police officer. Wilcock told PC Muckle, I am a Liberal and I'm against this sort of thing. This act triggered a legal case.
Councillor Galandris, as mover of the motion, would you like to respond?
Thanks very much, Deputy Lord Mayor. Councillor Malik, thank you very much for your supportive comments. I agree entirely with you. There is real concern about state overreach here. I think what we're seeing is increasing sort of focus on being collectivist, authoritarian and democratic. The government seems to be adopting an anti-libertarian position on almost every issue. It's bizarre and worrying, very, very worrying. And your costs, you're right, 1.8 billion is the starting point. If you look at the NHS IT contract, which didn't do very well, that approached £10 billion. Serious money, which we don't have at the moment, not to spend on something which the public don't actually want to see. Tim, I'm sorry I didn't wear my Christmas jumper. I should have done, actually. But my wife hates it. I think it's rather nice. I'll have to wear it on a Teams call, then you'll see it. And hopefully you'll say it's very nice. Why do we write to government? Because it's the only way we can try and change their minds on something. That's the importance of it. We're also going to write to the local MPs. This wasn't in the party manifesto. Therefore, I think there is a chance of actually trying to persuade the government on this issue to actually see sense. It's not what people want. It's going to cost a shed load of money. And why have we raised it? Because our constituents have been emailing us on this issue. They are concerned by it. And the person who's sort of badgered me the most is an IT expert. And he's particularly worried at the fact that this system could be easily attacked or surveyed by outside interests, outside the UK, that is. And that's what his particular concern is. Tim, thank you very much. Marvellous speech as always. And thank you for the amendments as well, the alterations to it, which we're very happy to accept. Great speech. Yes, we do have to have the flag of liberalism. We call it conservative liberalism. We completely back you on that. So thank you for your comments on that. Yes, we don't want to be a society which says, ihre Papiere bitte. We've never done that. We've never been that society. We've always been a free society, a liberal society, and I hope we always will remain so. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
First, yes, go ahead. Thank you, Councillor Hornchurch.
Can you not say something racist about Germans, please? Thank you very much. By the way, we do carry ID cards as Germans in this great authoritarian state of modern Germany.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we now move to the vote, and this will be an e-vote, so please ensure you're in your allocated seats so that your vote is recorded accurately. You're voting on the motion, and the vote will be open for 15 seconds. Please vote now. Are you happy to write those down? Actually, I think I've got the results on my little screen in front of me. So, yes, I know. Amazing. So, yes, 40. No, 0. Abstentions, 16. So that motion has been carried. Thank you very much. The technology works. Okay, thank you. That concludes the golden motion. So we now move on to the silver motion from the Green Group. And this is entitled Corporate Parenting, Adoption and Special Guardianship Support. This motion will be shown on the screen in the room during the proposing speech. I'd like to ask Councillor Christine Townsend of the Green Group to move the motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I was expecting the amendment to come, but I have my...
Oh, we'll hear from the proposer and seconder, and then we'll move to the amendment.
I see, OK. So this is my first motion, which is why I probably don't know all of the full procedures. Thank you. So we've known for decades that outcomes, with outcomes and research, that children have the best chance of fulfilling their goals and their dreams when they're raised in stable and loving family environments. Equally, we've known for decades that the state makes a poor parent. Those who are care experienced remain overrepresented in educational underachievement, experience poorer employment prospects, are more likely to experience elements of the criminal justice system, more likely to experience homelessness, have poorer health outcomes, and ultimately they will die earlier than the general population. Care experience has a profound impact on those who experience it. It can and does take many years to process. It shapes lives, but overrepresentation in negative life outcomes does not have to be an inevitability. What is needed is recognition and support to overcome what will be long-term and profound impacts on their lives. This needs specialist therapeutic intervention and is often needed to enable children and young people to explore their own experiences, to process their thoughts and their feelings, understand their own reactions and analyse their responses later on in their lives. Ultimately, arriving at a place that allows them to move into adulthood with the skills and confidence that most of us will take for granted. There is a cliff edge in March 2026 for this fund. As we stand here today, it is not known how a child or a family on April the 1st, 2026 can access this type of support as a new applicant. The workforce are very specialists. They are relatively small and are currently entering an Xmas and New Year holiday period, wondering if and how they might pay their rents or their mortgage or their bills or their food. On Monday, December the 1st, the House of Commons held a scheduled education questions. This saw the Minister for Children and Education, a member of the Labour government, answer direct questions in relation to these therapeutic support services. Whilst the Minister used words that recognise the importance of this, no mention of how the funding cliff edge is to be prevented come March. The Minister stated that the government wanted to work with all interested parties to, and I quote, find positive and sustainable solution for the future. Well, who wouldn't want that? But the future is now if you are a child awaiting adoption within the family matching system. The future is now if you're part of the current workforce who, come January, less than 4 weeks ago, are contemplating how they might live. Stability cannot be achieved with uncertainty, and it is precisely because stability cannot be achieved with uncertainty that only a vote for this motion will express the commitment every one of us must hold equally as members of the corporate parent. Abstention is not certainty. Abstention does not signal understanding or commitment to this group of residents, and therefore abstention tonight on this issue cannot be your position if, as the law requires of you, you exercise your corporate parenting role in this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Townsend. And now Councillor Rob Brad to second the motion,
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I rise to second the motion. The Adoption and Special Guardianship Support Fund is a UK government fund that councils such as Bristol City Council can apply for to provide therapeutic funding for eligible adoptive, special guardianship order and child arrangement order families. To be clear, this is the fund that supports families who have newly taken on children from the care system. There have been headlines and coverage in the last few weeks of foster families not being given enough support by local authorities, and this fund creates opportunities for that support. The start of an adoption journey can be a hugely challenging time as newly formed families hit unexpected roadblocks and challenges. The ASGS Fund has long been a lifeline for some of the most vulnerable children in our society, enabling them and their families to build brighter, more secure futures. The therapy that is involved is expensive. The fund has allowed families to access support they otherwise couldn't afford. This might be play therapy, art therapy, family therapy, or something else. This fund transforms lives. 82% of adopters surveyed by Adoption UK last year said the fund had had a significant positive impact on their family. But the national government has made cuts to which family can access through which funds family can access through the fund. A nationwide survey has found that this has already harmed children and carers' mental health, increased behavioural issues and undermined family relationships. Cutting this fund is going to cause far more problems and expenses in the long term. Nobody can process significant trauma all by themselves. If families don't get support early on, it will inevitably lead to more placement breakdowns and children having to move back into foster care. This is very expensive for councils and, more importantly, extremely traumatic for the children. The lack of clarity around whether this fund will be continued after the 31st of March 2026 is the reason for this motion being brought. We want to put on record our need for the UK Labour government to provide this support and ensure that there is no interruption in this continued provision. Uncertainty breeds huge difficulty in this area of the Council's work and our ability to signpost the best possible outcomes for those who need the support. In answer to the families, the Minister did vocalise a commitment to the families affected, but this does not provide reassurance. The Government has said there are no plans to end it, but funding beyond 2026 will apparently depend on the next spending review. It would be simple to commit to continuing this fund, but nothing concrete has been forthcoming. Words are cheap. It's time for action. Please vote for this motion so we have the Council's backing to send this message to the UK Government.
Thank you. As pointed out by Councillor Townsend, there has been an amendment from the Labour Group, which has been published online as a supplement earlier today. And I'd like to ask Councillor Catcher-Hornton of the Labour Group to move the amendment, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, members. I know this area of work very well. I adopted my son, and I have his permission to tell you so. I don't want to go too much into the personal details of bringing him up, but I can say it wasn't a straightforward journey. The story of adoption is that one of a happy ending, a forever family. If a child cannot return to its birth parents for whatever reason, surely this is the solution. We are told that a child needs plenty of love and stability, but that's just the start. Most children in the UK that are adopted or given special guardianship orders often come from very chaotic and traumatic backgrounds. Social workers have tried on numerous occasions to support the birth parents, and rightly so, to bring up their own children. An adoption or special guardianship order is not taken lightly. The early childhood trauma stays with that person for the rest of their life. Early childhood trauma and neglect has often visible effects on the brain. Then there's the complexity of the development of an identity, often not knowing how much of the origins of the child's birth family and how much is the life now. But it is not all bad news. With understanding, love, commitment, and above all support, there can really be good outcomes for children growing up adopted or in special guardianships. Of course, I'm concerned about what seems to be like a massive funding cut, worried that crucial, timely therapy is not being delivered when it is needed. The truth is, overall funding of 50 million is not being cut. The way it is being administered is changing. More children will have access to these basic therapies, and I even did a back of the envelope calculation for this. About 3,000 a year is enough to cover this. There will be cases where therapy is more expensive and more is needed, and that 3,000 limit. Ideally, the government would fund this, but in the current situation, it is right that the council and regional adoption agencies set up and cover up the excess that is needed. It is, after all, a small number of children that go into special guardianships and adoption, an even smaller number that need this excess over the 3,000. But there are many things a local council could be doing and should be doing to support the adoptive parent or special guardian. Firstly, make the process of getting support much easier a phone conversation, a one-stop shop for parents. About 60% of adopted special guardianship children are entitled to an EHCP or on one. Bristol's current average week of 40-week waiting time is creating further stress, often in the most crucial time of the child settling in and bonding with its new families. We could make sure therapies on offer such as life story work are available throughout the child's growing up. There is support and understanding to the situation from universal services. We could make sure that that happens, such as schools, childcare, sports clubs and respite. I can't tell you the amount of times I've had to lecture people about things.
Last sentence, please, Councillor.
Sorry. We can lobby our government for more funding, but we should look to us about more of what we can do.
Thank you. Thank you. And now, Councillor Renard to second the amendment, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I rise to second the amendment. And I recognise how important this issue is. But I just wanted to start with the language in this motion. Unnecessarily provocative, I would argue. There are plenty of things happening under this Green administration that are betrayals. Eagle House and its promises of return to the community within 6 months. Youth provision provided there previously. 3-4am raised to install the East Bristol Livable Neighbourhood Scheme, or cuts to culture funding, to name but a few. The context is important. Funding is not being cut. It's been increased since last year. The principle behind the lower cap is to spread the funding more widely and note to previous average spending considering the approach to be taken. The whole fund for the whole of the country is now increased to 50 million from 49 million the previous year. In 24-25, the average funding awarded per child was £3,090, and there will be a few children who require therapy above that limit. And I recognise the concerns of families affected, and we do need to ensure access to appropriate therapy that is tailored to individual needs. I'm sure the Council could fund it or support the Regional Adoption Agency to do so if there was a more appropriate route. As the amendment outlines, the Greens have found the cash for a number of other unfunded spending commitments this year, showing this administration's total failure to get a grip on this city's finances. Last year's settlement for the Council was 27 million higher than it forecast. We don't know how much it would cost for the Council to top up its fund as and when needed, but it is likely it wouldn't be a huge sum of money. Politics, after all, is about choices. A relatively small number of Bristolians will qualify for this fund. Stepping up to fill the gap is the right thing to do and wouldn't be particularly costly. We can write letters or we can take action. I appreciate the councils aren't awash with cash, but the council has clearly found funding to the tune of 216 grand for a new exec director, which I'd argue was much less necessary than this. We appreciate that local authority covering costs above £3,000 is not an ideal way to go about things. So we're happy for the council to lobby government to revert the changes if that's what full council thinks is best. But we feel this motion is something of a missed opportunity. As Councillor Hornchin has said, there is a lot more the council could be doing to support adopted parents and children under special guardianship. We should be looking at ways of doing this and putting things in place. If full council supports this amendment, the Children and Young People Committee will be tasked with drafting a plan to bolster our support for those in need, and Councillor Townsend will lobby the government. If you vote against this, you might feel like you've got one over on Labour in the chamber. However, there will be no tangible action aside from Councillor Townsend's call for a letter, which could just be written anyway. That would require those on the benches opposite, though, wanting to finally show some leadership, which has been sorely lacking for the last 18 months. So vote for the amendment. By all means, lobby government. But let's also take action too. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from speakers on the amendment. So first, Councillor Townsend to speak on behalf of the Green Group.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. So this amendment fundamentally misinterprets what happens within the permanency element of the corporate parenting. There is a reason why this fund is centrally administered. It may well be that a Bristol child moves to another local authority. That happens with fostering, but the point is that we bring those foster children back. When a child moves permanently, they move into another local authority. That's the point of permanence. That is why central government is responsible for administering this fund. I do not understand how it is that the Labour Party would suggest that Bristol as a local authority would in some way administer support on a kind of bespoke nature within a system where we are acting alone as a local authority. This is a system that is operated at the national level, and the reasons that it operates at the national level is because this is a different element of the corporate parenting responsibility that we hold. There's no mention in this amendment, or indeed in how our colleagues have spoke to this, about the cliff edge, about the uncertainty, or indeed about the maintenance of the workforce. Specialist workforces need to be maintained. If people are leaving their roles or thinking about leaving their roles, this side or the other side of the holidays, there is an infrastructure risk. We need to maintain these therapies so that these families and these children have that certainty. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now Councillor Brown to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. I'm going to keep this brief. This amendment is a shameless politicking. God, I can't even say it.
Politicking.
Shameless politicking. That's the word. Shameless politicking on the back of the most disadvantaged children in our city, and Labour should be ashamed of themselves. That would have worked better had I said it properly the first time. But anyway, for absolute clarity, my group will not be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Mark Weston on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you very much, my Deputy Lord Mayor. This amendment had me raging this morning. I think its tone, tack, the whole language is absolutely appalling. I love a Christmas movie. I'm sure you all do. I love Arthur Christmas. It's one of my favourite. And a child was missed in Santa's delivery. A child, a single child, and the whole premise of the movie is built around this. And the sort of the baddie, but it comes good in the end, I suppose, to give a spoiler alert, comes good and realises that every child matters. You look at point 8 here. Considering the relatively small number of children, oh, it's all right then. They don't matter, it would appear. They bloody matter. They're the most vulnerable ones in our society. And the fact you can put that in an amendment is awful. It dismisses them entirely. The Adoption Special Fund, I'm just livid on this one. The Adoption Special Guardianship Support Fund is dealing with some children that have had it rougher than any of us can imagine. I've seen some of the casework I've got, and to think of what they've lived through and the instability that they've had to endure, and you put something like that in, that is shameful. Absolutely shameful. And then to wrap it in all the rest of it, what you are doing to that fund is god-awful itself. You are cutting the amount a family can go. It's gone from 5,000, now it's to 3,000. There was then a supplementary 2,500 where you can apply for if you need to get assessments. But not anymore. That's not no longer separate. That's included in the 3,000 that you've left. So once you've spent 2,500 on assessing the problems that these poor children have, they've got 500 quid left to try and write things. To dismiss this as politicking, that's the word, is quite frankly shameful. The fact you've brought this and you claim to be a party for the most vulnerable is even more shocking. I have no hesitation in voting against this bit today. I'm going to support the original motion. It's a damn good motion. You should be ashamed.
Councillor Hornchurch, I'm afraid to ask, but do you want to respond as move with the amendment?
Yes, I do want to respond to that amendment. I find it very difficult when a Conservative member can actually say those things about being angry. I lived through the Conservative government, had to deal with some of the most difficult times of our family's life, and I know anybody that has had a child with a disabled child or someone has the same kind of complications when one service after the next was cut. Talking about workforce infrastructure, we had workforce infrastructure before. I know in the game long enough to know that a lot of the therapies used to come through something called CAMS, a Child Adolescents Mental Health Service, which was a national service, and it was an umbrella service, so we had all the specialists and everything coming to that. That was decimated by the Conservative Party, who seems to be so angry at everybody. I don't even have words for the kinds of pain that that government has put my family through and still does. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hornchin. And Councillor Townsend, would you like to respond as move of the original motion?
Yeah, thank you very much. So I find it interesting that between members' questions and full council, the second speaker was still to be confirmed. The fact that the leader is the one that has to speak, I think, speaks volumes about actually probably what is going on amongst some of our Labour councillors on the other side of our benches. Thank you to Councillor Weston. I agree with you. I think it's disgusting, some of the language that's come through here. The misunderstanding about what this fund is for, how it's administered and why it's administered in the way that it is clearly something that the Labour group need to educate themselves on. That what they are arguing is that they want to spread the jam thinner so that more children can be included. They tried that when they tried to cut the High Needs Fund by £5 million at a local level, and this administration is still picking up those pieces. They also tried to do that when they cut the top-up funding, which then saw a massive surge, evidently predictable, within the EHCP. We're still having to deal with the mess that those people left and that Labour administration left for us. So for members of the previous administration who oversaw cutting support for the most vulnerable children, a lack of interest, a lack of understanding, they really did not pay any attention to their corporate parenting responsibilities, what was going on in our education system, or indeed what was going on in children's services. I believe that since I've been in this post, I have brought corporate parenting to a level within this chamber that it has never been seen before, and I will continue to do that. And clearly, the misunderstanding and lack of interest by some members within the Labour Party will continue to be exposed. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll now move to a vote on the amendment. This will be an e-vote. Please ensure you're in your allocated seats, that your vote is recorded accurately. So once again, you're voting on the amendment and the vote will be open for 15 seconds. Please vote now. So for the amendment, those for were 15, abstentions 0, those against 40. So that amendment has fallen. Thank you. So we will now hear from speakers on the motion, the original motion. And I'd like to call on Councillor Shona Gemfrey to speak on behalf of the Green Group.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. So we've already talked about how family stability is one of the most important things for children, right? And being removed from your birth family is a huge rift to the psyche. So if you haven't gone through that, I want you to just take a moment to imagine it. Think back to your own childhood, whoever you grew up with, and imagine that one day you're at school, someone comes to tell you you're not going home to those people. And even if your new carers are nice, and even if you look back in future years and agree this was the best decision to keep you safe, that fear and uprootedness, that's a traumatizing event in itself. And maybe an extended family member or family friend comes forward to care for you. These are called kinship carers, and they do a wonderful job, but they are not trained specialists, and this is not something they expected to be doing with their life. Maybe the child is adopted at a very young age, but even very young babies can experience trauma. Maybe they've been exposed to drug use within the womb, and they are going through withdrawal at birth. Maybe they have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. That might not be obvious till years later. They might even have been severely injured by their own birth parents. So children who've been through the care system, they have the odds stacked against them, but there is hope. A loving, nurturing, stable home can provide so much healing. And that's what these guardians and adopters are trying to do. But they need our help. Because if children don't get the therapeutic support they need, their behaviour can become extreme, and this increases the risk of placement breakdown. Their adopter or guardian might say, we can't do this anymore, and put them back in foster care. This happens in approximately 6% of adoptions nationwide, and that is far too high for something that is meant to be permanent. Nationally, we know there are not enough foster carers. Teenagers often have to live in residential homes run by private companies, and we as a local authority have to pay exorbitant amounts to access these. It is the privatisation of our foster care system by stealth and by capitalism, and one of our biggest costs in our budget is paying for these placements. We are starting to tackle this by opening our own children's homes, but we can't afford a new influx due to a surge of placement breakdowns. So you can see how national government are cutting this support fund is a false economy. And Labour have a great cheek to try and argue that we on a local level should be clearing after their national government's mess, particularly because some of the local finances they have tried to point the finger at tonight are because of their previous local decisions. They were the party who started the Bottle Yard Studio privatisation process under the previous administration. We have been landed with sorting it out. They were the party who left us in an absolute mess with housing, leaving our council tenants in unsafe homes with poor regulatory judgment. We are the ones who've had to clean that up, which has included recruiting an executive director of housing to help us oversee that and make our council housing safe. How dare you create this mess through your own complacency and then have a go at us for trying to sort it out? As you may remember, Deputy Lord Mayor, I have a toddler at home and she takes more responsibility for her mess than this Labour Party does.
Councillor Jemphrey, one final sentence, please.
I know you would like us to stop pointing out all the issues with our national government, but do you know how badly your party has to misstep to get me on the same side as the Tories? Thank you.
And now, Councillor Susan Collard to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Now, any of you out there will know parenting is a big issue for me. Being a corporate parent is one of my favourite aspects of being a councillor. I find it immensely rewarding. However, the pantomime of the chamber isn't why I stood to be a councillor. It is to make a difference to my community and those who need it. The council has been doing great work for caregivers. It is to be commended. I think this is recognised cross-party. As a recent example, the hub for caregivers is absolutely fantastic. I tend to get really excited about these sorts of things. It's been in work for 5 years and I am glad it's finally opened its doors. For me, it's the motion's line on betrayal that I find ridiculous. Under the government, all schools get in the library, new breakfast clubs, expansion of free school meals, the 2-child benefit cap lifted. This government has done more for children than any other I can remember. And I'm not as old as I might be. If you do want to talk about betrayals, in my first meeting as Children and Young People's Committee, I proudly voted against the cut to respite breaks for carers. It was forced through, and the list goes on. The motion feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. Policy chairs are well within their rights to lobby government. It's part of the job. And I would hope that they feel they have the authority to do it without needing to take it to full council first. But motions become council policy, and we've seen a number of thoughtful, beneficial ones receive council support that have been actioned. And the council could do more for supporting adoptive parents, those in care or children with special guardians, like the measures that Councillor Horton outlined earlier. Now, I fully support and appreciate the concerns of adoptive parents and special guardians as a result of these changes. They do so much for our children and young people, and of course they need to be supported. And they should be celebrated. Local authorities and regional adoption agencies can fund therapy above the fair access limit, and they should. The council certainly spends money on cases not quite as worthy as this one. Therapy for adopted children and those with special guardianship is a great example of preventative treatment. We will likely recoup the costs for it by lessening the demand on our services in the future. So unfortunately, I feel that I have to abstain. And I am disappointed that I feel that I have to abstain because it is and really important and something really close to my heart, that we should be supporting these families and these children and all the rest of it. It matters. It absolutely matters.
Thank you, Councillor Collard. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, we
whip.
will now move on.
intention of
Thank you
ignoring
very
my
much,
whip.
Councillor Collard. Thank you. We will now move on to Councillor Andrew Brown to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, my Deputy Lord Mayor. Before I start, I think I found the tenor of this debate tonight quite challenging, and I think that the word pantomime was used a short while ago, and I think it was the Labour Party's amendment that has brought that atmosphere of pantomime to the Chamber. Had they wanted to make a constructive amendment, they could have done, but they actively chose not to, and that is really disappointing. It's certainly been a more disappointing pantomime than the one I went to on Saturday night, put on by the Bristol Foster Carers Association, which was entertaining, and I would recommend to members next year. One of the most important roles that we perform as councillors is that of corporate parenting, and it's something that we all are responsible for, whether we see ourselves in administration or in opposition or wherever. We're jointly responsible for the children in our care and supporting their development, whatever their care setting. As a member of the corporate parenting panel, I'm privileged to see and hear about the work that the service does in the most challenging of circumstances. And those challenges are faced by everyone involved, from the council officers to the social workers, to the care home staff, to the foster carers and adopters. Everyone in that chain is facing challenges, but most of all, those challenges are faced by the children, and it's to them that we owe our responsibility. And it's our duty to fight to maximise the support available to our children in care. So the Adoption and Special Guardianship Fund we've already discussed, but provides essential support to those who access it. These changes lessen that support and make things more difficult for our carers and for the children. As noted in the report, under the current scheme, 82% of adopters saying it has a significant impact, and the proposed changes put that impact in jeopardy. By making these changes, which include a further reduction in the funding cap, and it's already been pointed out that this isn't just a reduction from 3,500 to 3,000, it follows on from a reduction from 5,000, especially at a time of rising costs. We're preventing match funding, we're preventing funding from spanning multiple financial years, and the government has created a cliff edge, and Councillor Townsend referred to that earlier, a cliff edge in support offered, and it's going to cause anxiety and counterproductive to the fund's purpose, and it all comes back on the children in our care. Members may have seen recent reports on the BBC about the sad situations where adoptions break down. And at a time when there is increasing awareness of both the challenges that those who support our society through adoption face and the difficulties that those with the backgrounds that these children have through the adoption system, reducing that support available is surely a betrayal, and I am going to use that word. It has caused controversy, but I am using that word, a betrayal of those who need the support and stability most. So my group will be supporting the motion unamended and adding our voice to the call for a long-term settlement for the fund to provide security for our adopters and special guardian and those in our care who are our responsibility.
Thank you very much. Councillor Weston, please, for the Conservative Group.
Thank you very much, my Deputy Lord Mayor. I'll try and be my usual jovial self here. Councillor Jeffreys, I think you spoke very well, and I can only assure you that I hate it when I agree with the Greens as much as you hate it when you agree with us. Merry Christmas. I agree with the motion today. I think it is very important, and I think Councillor Jeffreys spoke very well when we talk about when adoptions fail. Because it's bad enough, the instability in these kids' lives, where they've been ripped out from their homes, often very dysfunctional homes, that are already unstable anyway, often with a multitude of problems. And then they can be adopted, and then problems appear down the line. And this is where the old system, that's only 18 months ago, the old system where you could have specialist assessments, and then you would have money for specialist therapies, and then actually you would have exceptional circumstances funding on top of that as well, that you can access this to try and make sure the adoptions stick. Otherwise, you're taking a problem and compounding it And particularly at this time of year, to try and tell a child they're unwelcome and back they go is horrendous. I don't think any of us can make a joke of that, and I'm not even going to try. I think we need to do what we can. Councillor Reynard, earlier, you said politics is about choices. And you're absolutely right, it is about choices. You can choose not to spend 1.8 billion on digital ID. And you can choose to spend it on some of the most vulnerable in our society. And that is a choice this government is choosing to make. And it's making the wrong choice. You can throw stones at my party, that's absolutely fine, but you know in your hearts it is the wrong choice. And I would urge you today, back this motion, because actually the kids out there and the families that are supporting them, sometimes extended families, sometimes who didn't expect this to happen. You know, I've got a case where suddenly 4 kids end up on a family member's door and they weren't expecting it, and all the problems that come with that. They need the help. So we need to back the motion, and the government needs to rethink what it is trying to do and what its priorities are into the future. So I'd urge you at this point, don't abstain, vote for this instead. And my final comment, ere I exclaim, or I sit down out of sight, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
Councillor Townsend, would you like to respond as mover of the motion?
Yes, thank you. Councillor Jeffrey spoke very powerfully about her own experiences within her work and explained and empathised with the issues that the children may experience, but also the families that they're placed with over time. And this, what we're talking about here, is support over time for children. Again, this is why it needs to be centrally administered. Councillor Collar, my Vice Chair of the Corporate Parenting Board, I know that Councillor Collar is completely committed to this particular role. I also know that Councillor Collar understands that this is a strategic approach to these groups of children. I also believe that there are other members of the Labour group that feel that the only vote that they can put forward today in order to show that certainty and that commitment to what are the most vulnerable children in this city and across our country is to vote for this. I didn't write this motion. This motion has been through numerous local authorities across our country and they've all voted and passed it. In Education Questions a week ago, literally yesterday, in the House of Commons, it was 2 Liberal Democrat MPs. They asked specifically about the cliff edge and they asked specifically about the workforce. The Minister did not give certainty. Our Labour colleagues need to vote for this to show locally that the children that need our support, they need to vote to show that they understand what corporate parenting is and that their role as corporate parents flies way above any party that they may represent or be members of. Your vote will actually probably have more of an impact than ours because none of us are in the government. We need certainty from the Labour government. The children need it and the families need it so that the breakdowns that Councillor Weston and Councillor Jeffries have spoken about are less likely to happen in the future. Thank you.
We now move to the vote. This will be an e-vote. Please ensure you're in your allocated seats, that your vote is recorded accurately. You're voting on the motion, and the vote will be open for 15 seconds. Please vote now. Thank you. So that's 38 for, 14 abstentions and no against. The silver motion has been carried, and that concludes agenda item 13. Thank you all for attending today's meeting. The next meeting of full council will hopefully not be chaired by me, and will be held on Tuesday, the 13th of January, 2026. And I would also just like to say before we go, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you all. Thank you very much.